I put my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad. I've punched him a few more times.
5 blokes outside my front door. Can you come and help
One
me?
hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.
Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by us here at York Hall. Mark Neilson joins me. How are you, mate?
Always good to see you, mate. Always good.
Good. Here for a show put on by Lee Eaton tonight, and I know that you'll be kind of soaking it in because obviously tomorrow night you've got your own show here. How do you feel when it's kind of a day before a show? Because look, you're an experienced man, you've done this before, but there's kind of the excitement and the nerves, I suppose, or not?
Well, we don't have nerves anymore. I get excited about it. You know, we've been having meetings tonight, plotting out 2023, and it's always good to be at these events because everyone's here. You know, we work with Lee Eaton. And times are different now when, you know, the promoters used to beat each other's throats and that. You know, we now all work with each other. We work with Lee, we work with the Sanagers, we work with Earl Johnson, you know, we just work with everyone. So we're sat there working with their teams, looking at what title fights we can put on next year. And there's some really big things we're looking at. But so being here tonight is great. Soak it all in. As I say, just pick the brains of somebody. And Mo Pryor's here. We're going to talk to him about getting a couple of title fights. So it's a great, everyone is here tonight. So we don't really have any nerves. I wake up tomorrow morning and then it's like it's fight day. That's when it really dawns on you, right, let's get it on. It's happening.
There's a really good show tomorrow night at York Hall as well. For the people who aren't too aware, and maybe some people when I put this out tomorrow morning in London who still want to come, if there's tickets available, sell tomorrow night show to me.
Yeah, well, listen, the main event, Jordan Dujon, Jack Martin, and it's going to be the king of the southern area, about 154 pounds of these two. You know, 1-6-1, 1-6-0, both, it's a 50-50. Everyone I'm speaking to, it's like split right down the middle of who they think is going to win. Jack Martin's a tough guy, Jordan Dujon's a cracking boxer, comes from a great camp and a great sort of background. It's a brilliant top of the bill, proper York Hall main event. But then we've also got, you know, a cracking undercard as well. So we got, you know, Billy Jackson and Gideon Unyani. I'll make sure I pronounce that right. But that's a proper 52, 4-0 guys, prospects, putting it on the line in a sort of co-main, and then a card littered with some great prospects who are in some good fights as well. So it's a really good York Hall event, some great top of the bill, and it'll be full. You know, like this is in credit to Lee, and tonight's a great show, and ours will be the same again tomorrow.
I'm really looking forward to what tomorrow night brings. It interests me when you say we're planning for 2023, because obviously you have to plan ahead, but I know from speaking to you before that you always seem not 2 steps ahead, 8 steps ahead. Like I remember when we last spoke, you said this is our plan of the next 8 shows. So you're always planning miles ahead.
Well, we've got our own stable of boxers as well, and working with the other promoters and the managers I touched on earlier. We've got 5 dates here at York Hall next year already booked in. We've got 3 in Swindon, 2 in Oxford, and we're looking at we're going to be back at Liverpool. We were talking about a show in Newcastle. We've got this huge list of boxers, talented boxers, and I'm looking at 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, all on the cusp of titles or eliminators. We're sat there plotting the next year. So, you know, we're in just touching October now, but we're already said plotting, so we can get the top half of the cards done. It's good for the boxers because they can go and book their wedding, book their holidays. They know when they're fighting, when they're going to be in camp. But a lot of guys, a lot of promoters in fairness are just sort of looking around the corner and looking at one show at a time. We're looking at 12 months ahead. I'm looking at it till the end of next year, our last show end of November, and we've already roughly got a rough idea of who's fighting when and what sort of titles and who we're going to think of putting them in against. So yeah, we always like thinking that far ahead.
Some really great shows in there as always with you guys. I want to talk about the big news at the moment. There's a couple of bits. Next weekend, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. Before we talk about the actual fight, I just kind of want your take on the build-up because it's interesting. You couldn't get 2 more contrasting fighters. Conor doesn't hide the fact that he's a gym rat. He's in the gym, he's working hard. This whole Eubank 60%, eating chicken at the KSI fight, birthday cake. Just kind of your take on them two in the build-up to next week.
It's brilliant, Eddie Hearn. I'm just a fight fan. I get sucked in as well. Everyone says that a good big one always beat a good little one, so I think it's a bit of a foregone conclusion, but I'm still sat there thinking, I'm going to pay for that, I'm going to watch it, that's a really good fight. I get sucked in just like every man. And it's a really good fight. The build-up's been great. I was there, I'm old enough to remember watching the originals when the dads fought in pubs back in the day, and I was as excited then as I'm excited now. So really looking forward to it. I don't think that it's a step too far for Conor. I don't think, Eubank's got to win it. If he loses against a welterweight, where does he go? But if Ben loses, he's lost against the middleweight, so it's so he can still move on, can't he? But great build-up, great marketing. I was watching it on the TV this morning. They're just great. I mean, you always know when these sort of fights have this crossover appeal. even my kids who aren't massive boxing fans, they talk about it. It's a big fight, Dad, next week. Is there their dad's fought, so there's this crossover appeal into the general public. And when it's on breakfast TV, they're really flicking the switches, aren't they?
Do you believe Chris Eubank in this 60% thing? And when we're seeing him eat chicken, is he eating one bit and chucking the rest of the bucket? Is it all for the camera?
It's all for the camera. They know exactly what they're doing. And I hear, from what I hear, is that he's a beast in training, that he's a different animal. He's taken this. He's a bit blasé, isn't he? In the front there, it's fine. I'm only at 60%. He's taken this very seriously. He's very proud. I think there's an issue with him and his dad I hear about behind the scenes, regardless of what they say and in public. But he's taken it very seriously. I've heard he's been chucking media out of the gym, which is, and he's normally quite amiable, but he's turned a bit nasty. It's very serious. He's, I think it's all a show. It's all for selling. But on the night, I think it's a very vicious Eubank.
Obviously, his dad's kind of been in the shadows and at times pulling strings for a lot of his career. It's kind of a bit weird that for the biggest fight, let's say, he's not as involved. Obviously, Nigel's been in the background for this fight as well. With the nostalgia effect, how important was it to get the dads involved? Because it isn't about them, but for the nostalgia effect, was it important to kind of use them as much as possible? They're big fighters in their own right, Conor and Junior. So.
Yeah, but it just adds to it, doesn't it? It just adds a bit more sauce to it. I would have thought they'd have had both the dads sat there on the TV as well, but I don't know if Senior really wants to be in that involved. I think he's moved away from him the last sort of year or two. Simmons, obviously, Vonnie Davis, he's changed his trainer. I don't know. I think it's a bit more complicated behind the scenes. And if he was involved, Senior, then you'd be seeing him. So it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
And just kind of on your final opinion on the fight, I suppose. I know you said a good big and beats a good little, and they're both good fighters, of course. But where do you stand on who's going to be victorious?
Well, I think it's going to be who's got the best game plan on the night, because everyone thinks Conor will just come out and try and chin him. But we know that Eubank's got a rock-hard granite chin. So that's not going to work, and then he'll blow himself out potentially when we know that Eubank's got a good engine as well. But then sometimes Eubank can go asleep in the middle rounds, and then Conor, if he's fit enough and can carry the extra weight, then he might be able to rack up some points if he doesn't get caught himself. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be how the extra weight's going to affect Conor. Is it going to slow him down? Is it going to make him sluggish? Is that going to be an excuse if he's not on point on the night? Or is the extra weight going to give him some extra power? So I don't know. It's going to be who's got the best game plan on the night. I personally, if you were pushing me, I'd probably think it might be a Eubank 9th, 10th round stoppage. But I'd like to see a really close point decision. But then again, you never know. I know what happened with the dads. Could be a draw and a rematch on the cards, right?
It wouldn't even surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. This whole Fury-Joshua thing, it's kind of changing every 5 minutes. I think just on the Thursday or maybe on the Wednesday, it changed about 5 times in an hour. He was fighting Joshua, then he was fighting Char, then 2 fights in one night. We don't know where it stands, but did you ever kind of get your hopes up like the rest of us that even in the short space of time, this might have been the one?
I had a little hope, but I didn't have too high expectations. And also this timeline and the deadlines they keep putting on it. I know for putting on a Southern area, a title fight, how much you have to go backwards and forwards, agree timings, purses and dates and whatever. This has been a couple of weeks. And a fight of this humongous magnitude, I think Eddie Hearn said it's taken 2 months to get the contract signed for Ben Eubank. This is one of the biggest fights in recent memory. It ain't going to be done in 2 weeks, and there's competing broadcasters involved. So, did he want it in the first place, Fury? Was he just playing games?
So was the original call out maybe a bluff? Do you reckon? Just kind of just to see. We know he likes putting stuff out there, just to kind of feel the response. Maybe.
Well, I think fair play to Tyson Fury and what he's done, and all credit to him. But he plays the media very well, doesn't he? He loves it. It wouldn't surprise me if it was all a bluff. And he just wants a Char fight and then a big unification with Usyk next year in Saudi for massive money. And he's just playing with AJ just to get people talking. And then, of course, they said, well, AJ didn't want it because he only gave him 2 weeks. So, I don't know. Interesting. Love watching it from the sidelines.
Yeah, I put my dad in the street against a heavyweight.
I've gone back to the dad. I've punched him a few more times.
5 blokes outside my front door. You coming in?
One hell of a fucking story, so stay tuned.